I watched my husband fix Jiyeon's necklace clasp at my own company gala. His fingers, her neck, his smile, the one he never gave me. And he didn't even look up to check if I was watching. I was. I stood there, in the dress I had chosen 3 weeks earlier, holding a glass of champagne I no longer wanted. And I made a decision. Not out of anger, not out of tears, out of something much quieter. Clarity. That was the night I stopped being his wife in my heart. Everything after that was just paperwork. My name is Iris. And for 3 years, I was the most invisible woman in Seoul's most powerful household. My husband, Hyun-woo, was the CEO of KSH Enterprises, one of the largest conglomerates in the country. Cold, brilliant, ruthless in boardrooms. The kind of man entire rooms shifted for when he walked in. But at home, he was just absent. Not physically. He sat at the dinner table every evening. He slept in our bed. His shoes were at the door. His coffee cup was in the sink every morning. But his mind, his eyes, his heart, somewhere else. Always somewhere else. I noticed small things first. The way his phone screen tilted away whenever I walked past. The late nights that smelled like perfume I didn't own. The way he laughed differently on certain calls, lighter, younger, like a version of himself he only allowed someone else to hear. I said nothing. I was raised by a woman who taught me that the most dangerous person in any room is the one nobody is watching. So I stopped crying in year 2, and I started watching instead. I started planning. People on the outside thought we were perfect, and I played that role immaculately. I hosted his business dinners with the precision of a woman who had studied power her entire life. I wore the right dresses, said the right things, laughed warmly at the right moments. I made every room feel effortless, because that is what invisible women do. We carry the weight so well that no one ever thinks to ask how heavy it is. I organized the charity galas that built his public image. I managed the household staff that kept his personal life seamless. I handled the social relationships that quietly opened doors his money alone never could have. I was his shadow, his scaffolding, the structure beneath the structure. Every morning I woke up, made his coffee exactly the way he liked it, and reminded myself that a woman who knows her own value does not need someone else to announce it. My turn would come. I had made peace with waiting. What Hyun-woo never understood, what men like him rarely understand, is that a patient woman is not a passive one. She is simply choosing her moment. Her name was Jiyeon, and she came back into his life the same way trouble always does, quietly, beautifully, and right when I had already made my decision. She had been his first love, university days, the kind of story men never fully let go of, the kind of woman a man keeps filed away in a private corner of his heart, labeled what could have been. She had moved abroad years ago, built a career in fashion, stayed single in the way that beautiful, calculating women sometimes do, keeping options open, timing everything. And then she returned to Seoul. I found out through a mutual acquaintance before Hyun-woo ever mentioned her name. I smiled when I heard, not because I was glad, because I already knew what was coming. He brought her up casually one evening over dinner. An old friend, back in the city. Nothing significant. I looked at him across the table and nodded pleasantly. "How nice," I said. And I thought, the clock just started. I excused myself, went to my private study, and called Marcus. "It's time to move faster," I told him. The gala was my idea. An annual charity event for KSH Enterprises, one I had built from scratch 3 years ago, into one of the most anticipated evenings in the city's social calendar. I had planned every detail: the flowers, the lighting, the seating arrangements, the menu that food critics would mention in their columns the following morning. and Hyun-woo invited Ji-yeon to my event. She arrived in a deep emerald gown, hair pinned perfectly, eyes sweeping the room like she was already calculating what belonged to her. She found me before I found her. "So you're the wife?" she said, extending a smooth hand, eyes doing that thing women like her do, cataloging, measuring, dismissing. I took her hand with a smile so warm it confused her. "So you're the reason," I replied simply. She blinked. I turned to greet another guest before she could recover. Later that evening, I watched Hyun-woo fix her necklace clasp. His fingers, her neck, that smile. And I stood there, held my champagne, and let the very last thread go. Clarity is a quiet thing, but it is absolute. What Hyun-woo never knew, what nobody in his world had ever bothered to find out, was who I was before I became his wife. He had met me at a private dinner, fallen for the woman in the room who spoke least and observed most. He had pursued me for 8 months before I said yes. He thought he had chosen me. He never realized I had chosen him first. Before I took his last name, I was Iris Osei Mensah, only daughter of Emmanuel Osei Mensah, a man who had built a financial empire so quietly that by the time the world noticed, it was already too late to compete. Osei Global Holdings, a private investment firm with stakes across 4 continents, and a 30% silent shareholding in the very debt structure that kept KSH Enterprises standing. My father had not raised me to lead boardrooms by being loud. He had raised me to understand that real power never announces itself. I had married Hyun-woo because I loved him, completely, embarrassingly, with everything I had. But I had never been naive enough to walk into any situation without knowing exactly how to walk out. Marcus arrived on a Thursday. My brother, 38 years old, sharp eyes, quiet energy, built like someone who had spent his entire life watching me navigate rooms with grace and had taken careful notes. He walked into my private study, sat across from me, and said nothing until I spoke first. "Ji-yeon is here to stay," I said. "I know. And Hyun-woo has already decided, even if he hasn't admitted it to himself yet." Marcus leaned forward. "So we move." We move. Over the next 6 weeks, Marcus and I worked with quiet precision. Legal documents were drafted and reviewed. Assets I had brought into the marriage were carefully reorganized, under my name alone. Osei Global Holdings prepared its formal letter, a recall of financial support from KSH Enterprises effective 90 days from the date of delivery. Every step was clean, legal, airtight. I was not burning anything down in rage. I was simply withdrawing what had always been mine. There is a difference. One is destruction. The other is reclamation. And everything I was doing, every quiet, deliberate move, was reclamation. I left on a Tuesday. No screaming, no broken dishes, no dramatic confrontation at the bottom of a grand staircase. I woke up before sunrise, showered slowly, and dressed in ivory like it was intentional, like I was walking towards something instead of away. I moved through our bedroom one final time. I touched nothing that wasn't mine. I placed my wedding ring on his nightstand, not thrown, not left carelessly, set down deliberately, like a full stop at the end of a sentence I had been writing for 3 years. Beside it, I placed the envelope. Inside, 2 things. A signed separation agreement, already reviewed by 3 attorneys. And the formal letter from Osei Global Holdings. Marcus was downstairs, engine running, ready. I walked out of that beautiful hollow house without looking back. Not because I felt nothing, but because I had already grieved everything worth grieving. The woman who left that morning was not broken. She was finished. And there is something quietly magnificent about a woman who knows exactly when she is done. I heard through my attorney that he read the letter 3 times. That he sat on the edge of our bed for over an hour without moving. that he called my phone 72 times before noon, that Ji-yeon was there when he found the envelope standing in our kitchen in a silk robe that did not belong to her, and that even she had gone pale, reading over his shoulder. Because it was not simply that his wife had left. It was that the woman he had spent 3 years making invisible had been holding the very foundation of everything he called his. KSH Enterprises began bleeding within weeks. Investor confidence wavered. 2 major partnerships stalled. The board called emergency meetings. Financial journalists started asking uncomfortable questions that his PR team scrambled to contain. And Ji-yeon? She was gone within the month. Quietly, quickly. No farewell, no explanation. Because women like Ji-yeon love the empire, not the man standing in the rubble of one. Hyun-woo was left alone in the house. I had made a home surrounded by everything and holding nothing. While his world contracted, mine expanded. I relocated to a city where no one knew me as somebody's wife, where I was simply Iris, where I could breathe without performing. I relaunched Oze Global Holdings under my full name, my vision, my strategy, my terms. Within 18 months, we had closed 3 landmark deals that put us on the cover of 2 major financial publications. Forbes described us as one of the most quietly formidable investment firms on the continent. I bought a home with floor-to-ceiling windows and a garden I tended with my own hands every Sunday morning. I laughed more than I had in years. I slept deeply and woke up without dread. I wore color bold, unapologetic color because I finally could. Marcus visited every month. The pride in his eyes was the kind that made my chest ache with warmth. And slowly, steadily, beautifully, I remembered who I was before I ever loved Hyun-woo. She was extraordinary. She had been waiting patiently beneath all that invisibility, whole, luminous, undiminished. I walked back into her arms like coming home. He found me 14 months after I left. I don't know how long it took him to locate me. I had not made it difficult. I had simply stopped making myself available. He appeared at the entrance of my office building on a gray Wednesday afternoon. No appointment. No warning. My assistant called to inform me. I told her to send him up. He stepped into my office looking like a man who had finally been forced to sit with himself and had not enjoyed what he found there. The polish was still there, the posture, but the certainty was gone. He stood across from my desk and looked at me the way a man looks at something he has only just understood the value of. "You look well," he said. "I am well," I replied. A silence settled between us. Not uncomfortable, just honest. "I didn't see you," he finally said. No rehearsed speech, no carefully constructed argument. Just that. 4 words. Bare and true. "I know," I answered gently. And I meant it without anger, because I had long since stopped needing his acknowledgement to know what I was worth. He asked if there was any way to fix it. I looked at him for a long moment. At the man I had loved with everything I had, the man who had sat across from me at 100 dinners and looked straight through me, who had let another woman stand in the home I built, who had smiled at her the way I used to pray he would smile at me. I thought about the girl who used to wake up early just to make his coffee right, who rehearsed conversations in the mirror, hoping today would be the day he finally saw her. And then I thought about the woman sitting behind this desk, who needed nothing rehearsed, who built something extraordinary from the wreckage of a love that forgot to water her. "Hyun-woo," I said softly, "I spent 3 years waiting for you to choose me. And in that waiting, I almost forgot that I was someone worth choosing. I won't go back to being invisible, not for you, not for anyone." He nodded. Slowly. Like a man absorbing something he could not argue with. He stood, straightened his jacket. "You deserved better," he said quietly. "Yes," I agreed. "I did." He left quietly. And I turned back to the window, to the city spread wide and golden before me, to the life I had stitched together from my own two hands, and I felt something so clean and complete that I had no name for it at first. Then it came to me. Peace. Not the peace of giving up, not the peace of settling. The peace of a woman who walked through fire and came out knowing exactly who she was. Marcus called that evening. We talked and laughed for an hour. He told me about a new deal he was pursuing. I told him about the garden, how the flowers had finally started blooming. "You sound happy, sis," he said. "I am," I told him. And it was the simplest, truest thing I had said in years. That night, I sat in my garden under a sky full of stars, tea in hand, bare feet in the grass. I thought about everything I had lost, and everything I had become because of it. And I decided that the woman I was now free, rooted, radiant, was worth every single painful step that brought her here. Some women are so busy being everything to everyone that they forget to be something to themselves. You are not weak because you love deeply. You are not foolish because you stayed and tried. You are not less because someone failed to see your worth. But hear this. Patience is not the same as permission. The moment you stop shrinking yourself to fit inside someone else's comfort, the moment you remember your own name, your own power, your own value, that is not a loss. That is a return. You were never invisible. You were simply in the wrong room. Walk out. Build your own, and never apologize for how magnificent you become once you finally give yourself permission to bloom. The woman who knows her worth does not negotiate it. Ever.